How's it going, Eliminators? I'm working on a little Honda Riding Lawnmower with a snap connecting rod, so let's get right into it. So I'm working on a Honda HTR 3009. I guess it's also called a Honda MAT because that's what it says on this side over here, Honda MAT. And this thing, unfortunately, has a snapped connecting rod. The customer said he was riding it and it kind of made like a loud clunking noise, and then he just couldn't start it anymore. He tried turning the key, which is right down here. He said it basically the thing wouldn't turn over. So I thought that maybe somehow he hit his starter while he was mowing and it popped up the starter and maybe jammed it into the flywheel. But I'm using my little USB endoscope here. You guys can check that review out that I did in the top right of your screen. It should be popping up now. Basically, I just plug that into my Android cell phone and then I put the camera end into the cylinder. So what I've done is I've lifted the hood of this thing. I've taken off a little mesh shroud. That's just to protect your fingers from going inside of the flywheel there. And I've also removed the spark plug. So basically with the spark plug removed, there's no compression on the engine. So I tried to turn over the engine and same thing, it just bound up, and you know, that kind of led me to believe that it was the starter. But once I put the endoscope in here, you guys can see I just have it inside of the cylinder there. I got it to the point where I can rotate the flywheel freely to a certain point and then it binds up. And basically what I'm thinking is that it snapped a connecting rod because every now and then it gets to a point where it really binds up and I have to take my socket on a ratchet there just to get a little extra torque so I can kind of break it free. And then it just gets to the point now where, I mean, like I can turn this thing very freely and there's not even any resistance of the piston going up and down. And I can prove that the piston doesn't go up and down when I turn the flywheel because I'm gonna plug my cell phone in here and I'm gonna show you guys. Okay, so I got my endoscope here. You guys can see there's a flashlight on it. This is where your spark plug goes. So you just push this into there and we can start to see our piston here. And you guys can kind of get an idea. There's your cylinder wall, right? There's your piston going along the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start rotating my flywheel and I'm going to leave this endoscope just the way it is. So this is our piston right there. That's the top of our piston. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate our flywheel and you guys can see I'm going kind of back and forth here and our piston is not moving. Not at all. So you guys can see down in the corner there, nothing's moving. So I'm moving that flywheel, and as I move this flywheel, that piston should be moving up and down, but it's not. So that leads me to believe that the connecting rod is snapped, and there's really not much I can do for this. You know, unfortunately, to pull this engine and like rebuild it, it might not be worth it because our customer doesn't want to spend a lot of money on this thing. And you know, to pull this engine, it's not as easy as pulling, let's say, a Craftsman. I did the Craftsman revival video. You guys can check that out. It should be popping up in the top right of your screen now. I just basically pulled the engine to do, I think it was a sump gasket, and it's super simple. You know, there's like 4 bolts. You unplug your fuel line, you unplug your throttle cable, and you unplug, I think, like 2 little electrical cables, and you can literally pull the engine right up. And on this thing, it's like there's quite a bit of stuff here. You guys can see there's like the hood that goes over top of it, and you really can't get in there. You have to go underneath to take that off, and it's like, you know, this is a big job to pull the engine. And then, you know, Honda parts, now you're going to get into more expensive parts that you probably have to get from OEM. So this thing's just not worth it. But this USB endoscope here, it's pretty awesome because, you know, I clicked right up there, I can record video. I click down here, I can take still shots, and then it saves everything to a little gallery. And yeah, it's awesome. It's got that little light on it, and it just makes, you know, doing work like this a lot easier. So instead of having to do all this stuff, basically I just go in there with the endoscope, see if the piston's moving up and down. I get to see if there's a crack in the piston, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. So unfortunately, there's not really much we can do. The customer, like I said, doesn't want to spend the money for a rebuild. So he's probably going to end up parting this machine out. Now the deck on this thing, the mower deck alone, he could probably sell for quite a bit of money. If someone has a machine just like this with a rotted out deck, I mean, that's got to be worth at least 125, 150 bucks. This thing looks like it's in mint condition. And this is what happens when you cut your grass in dry conditions. And you know, you roll it up and you clean it out with the hose. You don't get rotted out decks because you don't have a lot of grass and debris laying on top with moisture in it. So this deck he can sell for good money. All of his tires hold air and they don't have tubes in them. So if somebody had one that had a slow leak in it or something, they could buy a tire off of him. His fuel tank holds fuel and is not cracked. So if he ever wanted to sell that, he could, if someone had a cracked fuel tank, because you know, sometimes plastic fuel tanks crack. The transmission here is in excellent condition. He said it was driving just fine. So I mean, that's probably discontinued from Honda, but if you had to buy one, I'm sure it's about $200 online if people are selling used ones, maybe even more. So if he sold something like that for 150 bucks, I'm sure somebody would buy one. His battery's good. You know, there's a lot of good components on this thing that he could sell and just kind of part it out on Kijiji, which here in Canada, that's basically our Craigslist. So what I'm gonna do is put this thing back together in the way that we picked it up off of him. We went and picked it up and we're gonna be charging him like, I don't know, 35 bucks for pickup. And I'm only gonna charge him about 15 minutes of labor because it didn't take me that long. And I also got a nice little video out of it to show you guys. So I'll get this thing put back together so I can return it back to my customer. So it's unfortunate that we couldn't get this fixed up for my customer. However, stuff like this happens all the time, guys. It's just a part of doing business. Sometimes you got to give your customer some bad news. At the end of the day, though, it's not going to cost them a lot of money. Like I said, I'm only charging them like 15 bucks for labor and like 35 bucks for pickup and delivery. The engine also had oil in it, so it was fully lubricated. So this is just something that happened. Maybe the connecting rod cap on the crankshaft came a little loose. Maybe it had some sort of oil starvation issue. I don't know if this model has an oil pump or not, but sometimes the oil pumps can go. But at the end of the day, this is just a mechanical failure. That's basically what it boils down to. So if you guys enjoyed the video, think about leaving me a thumbs up. You know, it really helps me out. You can click here to subscribe, and you can click over here to watch one of my previous videos. I'm uploading every 2 weeks, so be sure to come on back, check the channel out for new content. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.